Good evening, Ali.
Hey, how are you, Atik? How you been?
I'm good, thank you. How have you been keeping up?
Yeah, we're just staying safe, locked down
Staying
as much
safe,
as we
locked down.
can.
Exactly, that's the deal here. So, while me and you, we are all locked down here, we still want to help our students, right? So, we had a chat in the morning, and we decided let's do something that would be very beneficial for our students, which is let's try and see if we can give them some idea with regards to summarize spoken text. So
Yes.
that's why we are here today. So, dear students, if you are watching this, this is a summarized spoken text item response demo. Uh, it's an effort from Sydney PT Study Center to help you in these trying times. So Ali, without any further delay, I would like to begin by playing a recording.
Okay.
So I want your help to identify and ask me questions to wherever the doubts you one student might have from a student's perspective. So
Okay.
let's get
I'm gonna take my own notes as well while
Sure,
you're doing the
please.
recording.
Please, by all means do so. And let's get started.
Yeah, let's go.
I am just going to share my whiteboard screen so that I can show the students what sort of notes I take. And here we go. So Ali, it'll be 2 seconds. I play my recording and we will start. So if a student, if you are watching, feel free to take notes as well. Here we go. Ali, in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, to help you with your research, I just wanted to give you some tips today on using focus groups. These are groups of people that you get together to find out about their opinions and attitudes, for example, to review a piece of work, or just basically provide some collective input to help you with whatever you're researching. First of all, how large should a focus group be? Well, I would say that an ideal number of participants is around 6 or 7. If it's any bigger, what quite often happens is they break into side conversations and the focus is lost. If it's any smaller, you may not get the range of views that you need to get a really good discussion. Secondly, it's important that you have a moderator for the group who's able to facilitate and guide the discussions. The moderator must ensure that everyone participates and stop anyone dominating. And also, the moderator needs to make sure that the discussions don't go off in the wrong direction. And thirdly, in order to help the group focus on what's required, some basic materials should be used, particularly to kick-start the discussions. This may be in the form of pictures, photos, diagrams, graphs, etc., and will help the group to understand the context of what needs to be discussed.
To understand the context of what needs to be discussed. I just want to update my notes. I believe this one could be an example, so I wouldn't want this. Probably this one also, I felt this was an example. Okay, Ali, my handwriting as pretty as it is, I have something. So these are my notes. So I'll just read aloud for the students. So the first note I have is tips on using focus groups.
Okay,
And,
I got the same idea on using focus groups.
Excellent. And then I have how large a group should be, and the suggestion was that it should be around 6 or 7.
Okay,
and then I have a few other notes. Okay. So I'm going to dive right into actually typing up the summary, and as we go along, you could ask me a question.
Okay, let's go to type the answer.
Yep, and now give me 1 second. I'll do a new share, and I'll share my screen. Okay, here we are. So going by the template provided by Sydney PT Study Center. So on the oration provided, it is associated with tips on using focus groups. So that's my first sentence. Ideally, that's how I would start.
Okay.
And let me just quickly have a look into my second note. And what did I write down? I wrote down how large a group should be, and it should be around 6 or
6 to
7.
7
So,
members. 6 to
okay.
7 members.
All right, so let me just dive ahead back to my screen. Additionally, groups must be around 6 or 7 members.
Okay.
Okay.
So here I got some extra information. Like, I don't know, you tell me if it's right or wrong, and you can tell
Okay.
the students as well.
Of course.
I got the same idea that the group must be from 6 to 7 members. But
Yes.
you mentioned as well it shouldn't be bigger, because if it is bigger, students may break down into side conversation. It shouldn't be smaller. If it was smaller, it will not give you the range
Right.
that you needed to make up the views properly. So,
Right. Yep.
do you
Yep.
think
You're right, Ali.
students should add this?
Those are the information. It was mentioned in the lecture, but to answer your question appropriately, I would want to jump to the marking guidelines provided by Pearson with regards to summarized spoken text. So if we look into what Pearson's expectation is for summarized spoken text, what we find is that in order for us to get the maximum scores, our summary, it has to be, it has to have all the relevant aspects that were discussed in the lecture itself.
You mean for the content?
For the content, yes.
Okay.
So if you pay attention closely with regards to relevance of the information, ideally what the main point was that the group must be around 6 to 7 members.
Yes.
Now, what happens if this happens? Those are secondary scenarios, right? So if there are more members, what would happen? If there are less members, what would happen? So these are supplementary information.
Okay.
But the main point right here was that the group should be around 6 to 7 members. That's number one point, which brings me to my next point, which is form. Now, Ali, this is a summary writing whereby Pearson also has given us a boundary and limitation with regards to how long our answer should be, the word limit. So, we cannot take the liberty of writing everything that we took note of, because we have to follow the boundaries as well. So around 50 to 70 words, and of course, just having all the relevant aspects from that lecture. Okay. Which is the reason why perhaps, it's not a necessity that you want to take notes of everything, just focus only on the main points.
So for those who panic when they are taking notes, can we say that as soon as you get a relevant aspect,
right,
the information, the first explanation coming after isn't or shouldn't be included in the summary?
Exactly. So what happens is that the nature of academic lectures are as such that the speaker always introduces a key point or a key aspect, and then backs it up with 2 or 3 extra information to support that main idea. So when you have something that's already key and relevant, you need not worry and panic to take notes of everything. So we're focusing on relevance here. We're not focusing on volume.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
So let's continue writing and piling up our summary.
Okay.
So if we look into...
Because I got too many questions.
Sure, one at a time. Now, the next note that I have taken is that it's important to have a moderator.
Moderator.
Okay.
Yeah, I got this one as well.
It's important to have a moderator. I want to rephrase it a little bit. So let me just quickly go on here. And I will write down moreover the importance of having a moderator was PPINTD. Okay.
Awesome. This is a note that I have taken the same, but I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I would like to go to the vocabulary. We all know that vocabulary is a marking guide, is in the marking guide in this task. Right. Am I going to get my vocabulary score as per this answer?
Absolutely. Now, again, just to give you a bit more clarity into where does the vocabulary scores generate from, we will look into what the marking guidelines are from Pearson. So Pearson says, in order for you to get good vocabulary scores, you need to have appropriate choice of words. Now, this is where I just want to give you a bit more clarity. For an example, let's say what I have written down is that, moreover, the importance of moderator was pinpointed. Now, these are, let's say, buzzwords, which are stressing on what the speaker was actually highlighting on. So the speaker was, in fact, if you paid attention to the recording, the speaker was saying, firstly, the group must be 6 to 7 members. Secondly, there has to be a moderator. So the speaker was highlighting and stressing on those elements. Now, Ali, if I simply just write down, the speaker talked about moderator, the speaker, the lecturer also mentioned moderator.
Not interesting.
It doesn't, yes, it doesn't feel like, or the summary itself doesn't have that much strength with regards to appropriate choice of presenting what your points are. So, which is why it has to be a mixture of correct choice of words, which I think CDPT Study Center's template aptly presents. And of course, it also has to be the key points that you take from your lecture. So, which is the reason why I have selected the word pinpointed, which is what the speaker was also stressing upon. It was that you have to have a moderator.
Okay, so can we say now, the better the main ideas, along with the proper template, the higher the vocabulary score?
Absolutely. So as long as you have the correct content, and as long as you have the correct choice of words with the help of template, you are likely to get maximum scores of vocabulary.
And what about the grammar? I can ask some questions about the grammar. When am I getting the full grammar score?
Okay, so again, there are a lot of misconceptions from students' perspective. So a student might think that, okay, in order for me to get grammar scores, I need to write down a complex sentence, compound sentence. Okay, not necessarily the case. I will firstly point out what Pearson wants from us, and then I'll give you an example of a student, let's say what a student tends to do. Okay, so yeah, Pearson simply wants correct grammatical structure from us. That's all they require from us in order for us to get good grammar scores. So as long as the sentence is coherent, it's understandable, and it's got the basic grammar structures intact, we will get our grammar scores. And let's say from a student's perspective,
they didn't mention that you need to write a complex or a
No,
compound or
no.
complex compound sentence.
Absolutely not. I will give an example, Ali. Let's say I wrote down this first sentence. This is what some of the students, they tend to do. Let's say they write this first sentence down,
Okay.
and then what they do is associated with it keeps on using focus groups and the, let's say, and let's say if we go back by the notes, and you will say, and it about moderator. Let's say the students, they tend to add up 2 key points,
Yep.
and then they make up a sentence. If you read this sentence, so it's got most of the information from the first part of the lecture, and then you've got some other points from the following parts, and they have made up a sentence.
Got some ambiguity as well. It's kind of ununderstandable.
Exactly. So it's significantly focusing on the duration provided. It is associated with tips on using focus groups, and it's about moderator. Let's say if a student adds up 2 key points, the result would be most likely misrepresentation of information. Now it's even more dangerous, because if the ideas are not clear, you may or may not get the content score. So it's not just about keyword match, it's also about understandability and correct flow and coherence of what you're writing down. So we don't need to we don't need to do all this. We simply have to construct academic sentences in such a way that the grammar structure is maintained. That's all.
So for those who are trying to impress the computer by writing some complex compound sentences, what would you like to tell them?
I would simply tell them that it's not a requirement. You simply make sure that you have appropriate choice of words to represent the notes that you've written down. And of course, the sentence structure, the subject verb object agreement, it has to be followed and maintained. Perfect. So of course, the tense also has to be correct. So you just follow the simple guidelines. That's all I would say.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Yep. And let me just find out what my last note was. So I wrote down in order.
I got the conclusion.
Okay, all right. It wrote down that I have some basic materials.
You must have some basic materials
to help to understand the context of what needs to be discussed.
Yeah, I got something similar.
Yep, some basic materials must be used. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Must be used
to help the group understand the context.
Help the group I'll keep it here like this. Okay, understand
the context of what must be discussed.
Context of
what must be discussed.
Okay, there we go. Done. My summary is ready. I'm hoping that you point out something for me from what I've written down, but
Okay.
my summary is ready. It's good to go.
Okay, if I were a student, I would maybe press next, but I
Right.
wouldn't press next right now. I would like to check my spelling.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna
good that
check the
you
spelling.
Good that you
Yeah,
pointed it out.
I think you deliberately made this mistake to trick me, but if I bring my head closer, I
Right.
can find some spelling mistakes. And here it comes to spelling. How many
Right.
spelling mistakes can I make to get the full score?
Okay, so again, if we go by Pearson's guideline, they are very strict with spelling errors. So if you make one spelling mistake, you lose 1 mark. You make 2 spelling mistakes, that's 2 marks lost. But that just doesn't end here, because spelling mistakes, it has a bigger array. So first thing first, of course, you know, even the simplest of typo errors, for example, right here, whereby I simply just, you know,
You left the A.
I left it purposefully. So this is a typo error, but Pearson would still penalize me the maximum. Okay, and number 2 is we are not allowed to mix the spelling conventions. So if the summary started off with let's say British convention of spelling,
Yep.
The entire summary has to be written in such form.
Okay.
If we mix and match the conventions, even though they're not spelling mistakes, the system would still penalize us. And the worst scenario is that if we make multiple number of spelling mistakes, even though the system is penalizing for 2 marks, but because of multiple spelling errors, content may not be understood. And when that happens, then of course it might result us getting in 0. So this is one way of analyzing our students' performance as well. When we see they are getting poor scores in spelling, you know, we find out that they make lots of spelling mistakes. Not necessarily spelling mistakes; it's just negligence.
Typo mistakes.
Yes.
So what's the best way to check spelling? Can I just look at the chart and check spelling?
Yeah, so I would say this is what the best advice that I can give is just go back to your basics as such, all the way down to where we were kids. You know, when we were kids, we were shown to read word by word. So I would ask you to point out your finger right at the screen, go word by word. And believe me or not, Ali, students, when they solve a few summarized spoken text question, they are always left with at least 2 to 3 minutes at the end. It's never a case where the student struggles with the time, but rather we will have extra time, but they just don't use it appropriately. So I would advise them to go word by word, layer by layer, check every single spelling. Okay. That would be my advice with regards to spelling.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. And
so we actually have covered the whole marking criteria, from the content to vocabulary to grammar, form, spelling.
Yes, and of course, we also had a bit of touch with note taking. So I hope the students were paying attention to when I was taking notes. I was actually mumbling and taking notes just to enhance the concentration. So that could be as a tips for taking notes as well.
I realized something regarding note taking. We just added it right now. I found that you got one idea from the first 15 seconds and from the last 15 seconds of the lecture. What would you like to tell students about the importance of those 2 spots?
So the importance of these 2 parts is that a Sydney PT Study Center student has, we enforce upon a student to take, ideas from the beginning as well as at the end, because academic speakers always introduce the topic of the lecture at the very beginning. And if we look into the marking guidelines as well, Pearson also expects us to get some sort of implications and conclusions from that lecture. And when Pearson finds out that we were able to take notes from right till the end, it already puts us in a higher category of listening skills, because it believes that we have the listening capacities to listen to right till the end of the lecture. So it all adds up. So that's the reason why we stress upon students to take notes from the beginning as well as at the end.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It was really helpful. And just for our students, as you can see, guys, in 20 minutes, and Atiq and I have covered one of the most tricky tasks in your exam. So hopefully, guys, you take the advantage of this scenario and you take into consideration what we have discussed and apply it. I believe if you apply whatever Atiq mentioned, especially for the note taking, it wouldn't take by you more than 10 days if you need to do it. This is from my side. Try to practice as much as you can. Try to watch this video. This live video will stay on our Facebook page. And if you guys have any questions, just please ask me. Atiq, would you like to add anything?
No, Ali, I think you've put it in a very good words. So my message to you guys is that we are passing through very difficult times, but PTE is a necessity for us. So if we can, and if we have the time to clear PTE, or at least be prepared when the test centers open up, let's do everything that we can from our end to be ready. so that you know how Australian government wasn't ready for the COVID-19 situation. So at least when the test centers open up, this is my advice to you students, is that just make sure you are ready. When the test centers open up, you are ready for the test.
And everyone was complaining that I don't have time to study. Now you do have the full
exactly.
time.
Now you have lots of time to study, hope, you know. And you know, if you need any help, feel free to be in touch with us, and we will see how we can help you. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you,
and, thank you, viewers, and you know, hopefully we will catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.